Hello students, in this video lecture series, today we will discuss about the general properties of acids and bases. So student, here I have listed all the important properties of acids. Acid plus metal gives salt plus hydrogen. Acid plus metal carbonate gives salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. Acid plus metal hydrogen carbonate gives salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. Acid plus base gives salt plus water. Acid plus metal oxide gives salt plus water. Now student, these are general properties. Almost all the acids follow this pattern, follow these rules. Student, before we go and discuss more about these properties, I want you to focus, I want you to study this reactivity series, which is in our NCERT textbook, page number 45, table 3.2. This very important table that will help us understand some of the reactions. Second thing, student, remember one thing, metal oxides are always basic in nature and non-metallic oxides are always acidic in nature. And one more very important point, in all these reactions you can see one of the common product is salt. Now student, what is salt? In chemical science, salt is something that is formed by metal cation and anion from the acids. You can see these all are the acids. It's a nitrate ion, carbonate ion, hydrogen carbonate, phosphate, chloride, bromide, sulfate, sulfide. These all are the anions which are obtained from the acids. Now student, if you see the metal cations combined with any one of these anions, you must understand it's a salt. So metal cation combined with the anions obtained from the acids are called salts. So these are some of the important points that you must remember before we study more about these chemical reactions. Now student, let's start understanding these reactions one by one. Student, so the first reaction is acid plus metal gives salt plus hydrogen. Every acids on reacting with every metals, almost every metals, gives salt and hydrogen as a product. Student, here is an example to illustrate this point. I have a magnesium, it's a metal, plus hydrochloric acid combines to give us hydrogen as one of the product, and this is salt. Now student, why this is salt? Because as I mentioned, salt is obtained by the combination of a metal cation and anion from the acids. These are the anions obtained from the acids. Now you just look carefully. You have a compound here, magnesium chloride. Now magnesium is a metal and chloride, this chloride is obtained from the acid. Chloride ion is obtained from hydrochloric acid. Student, let me just name some of the some of the acids. This nitrate ion is obtained from the nitric acid. Carbonate ion is obtained from carbonic acid. Hydrogen carbonate is also obtained from carbonic acid. It's a phosphate ion obtained from phosphoric acid, hydrochloric acid, hydrobromic acid, the sulfuric acid, sulfurous acids. These are the anions obtained from the acids. So student, you have a magnesium. So magnesium Mg2 plus, that's a magnesium cation, and chloride Cl minus. If you cross over this, you'll get the product MgCl2. So this is your salt. So metal plus acids gives salt plus hydrogen. Now student, pay attention. As I mentioned, this reaction is followed by almost all the acids and all the metals. But when I say all the metals, it means the metals which is above hydrogen in the reactivity series. Now I want you to go through this reactivity series. In this reactivity series, all the metals which are above hydrogen, all the metals above hydrogen will give this reaction, but the metals which are below hydrogen in the reactivity series will not give this reactions. Now that's one important point you must remember. I want you to go through the page number 19 our NCERT textbook figure 2.1 to better understand these reactions. So that's about the acid plus metal gives salt plus hydrogen. Now student, about the acids also, there is one problem. Almost every acid gives this reaction, but there is one acid which will not give this reaction with metals, and that is what nitric acid. So we'll discuss more about this in our next chapter. Now student, next reaction is acid plus metal carbonate gives salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. Here we have an example to understand this. Acid, let's take the acid HCl, hydrochloric acid, and metal carbonate. As this is metal carbonate, here we have a metal carbonate, sodium carbonate, metal, and this is carbonate, so metal carbonate. So acid plus metal carbonate gives carbon dioxide, water, and salt. So you have carbon dioxide, you have water, and it's a salt. Now you know it's a metal cation and anion from the acids, as I mentioned here. So this is salt. Similarly, third reactions. And to better understand these reactions, page number 20, our NCERT textbook, you just go through the figure 2.2. Next reaction, student. Acid plus metal hydrogen carbonate gives salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. You can see these two reactions gives the same product. Let's understand this. Here we have an example. HCl, it's an acid, plus metal hydrogen carbonate. So we have a metal hydrogen carbonate here. On reacting, it gives carbon dioxide, water, and salt. You can see both this reaction gives the same product. Now the third important properties is acid plus base gives salt plus water. Acid, so HCl is acid, NaOH, it's a base. So acid base reactions, student, acid and base combines to neutralize each other's effect to give us salt and water. So this is salt. Now student, when I say salt, you understood what is the meaning of a salt. Now next comes acid plus metal oxide. Now as I mentioned, student, metal oxides are basic in nature. Now acid plus base, from the previous reactions, you know, acid and base combines to give us salt and water. So you can at once understand this is acid and metal oxides. So we know what is the nature of the metal oxides. It's a basic in nature. So acids on combining with a base give salt plus water. So here is an example. HCl plus MgO. Acid plus magnesium oxide is a metal oxide. So this is acid, this is basic in nature. So give us salt plus water. So student, if you know the reactant side, if you remember this general properties, and if you are given the reactant side, you'll be able to predict the products. Let me show you one example. Suppose suppose aluminum is the metal and suppose HCl is the acid. Now suppose we are asked to complete this reaction. What will be the product? And now to know this, you have a metal, you have an acid. Now you know what happens when acid and metal combines. So to give us salt plus hydrogen, hydrogen. You have hydrogen here. So what is the salt? Now make the salt, student. Now to make the salt, you know how to make the salt. You need metal cation and anion from the acids. You have acid HCl here. So which anion you'll get from this acid? You'll get the chloride ion. And metal cation, you know, aluminum cation is Al3 plus. Now if you cross over this, and you will get the salt AlCl3. So your product will be AlCl3. Now suppose, student, instead of aluminum, let's say copper and HCl is given. Now let's try and complete this reaction. You have a metal, you have acid. So you may be tempted to say the product will be salt and hydrogen. But before you write the product, ask yourself, is this metal or this reaction is feasible or not? This reaction will give you the product or not? So that's why I asked you to go through this reactivity series. Now compare this metal. This metal is above hydrogen in the reactivity series or below hydrogen in the reactivity series. So from the reactivity series, student, we know copper is below hydrogen. So because copper is below hydrogen, so this reaction will not occur. So we'll not get the salt and hydrogen. So that's the importance of understanding and memorizing the reactivity series. So that's how we can predict the product of this reaction, student. Similarly, let's take one more example. Suppose I have acid. Let's say suppose I have uh, HCl, and let's take this reaction, acid plus metal oxide. Let me take aluminium oxide, Al2O3. So now you know aluminium oxide, as I mentioned, metallic oxides are basic in nature. So this is base, this is acid. Now you know base and acids combines to give us salt plus water. So you will have one of the product as a water, and now you want to make the salt. Now to make the salt, you need what? You need metal cation, anion, anion from the acids. So from this acid, you'll get the anion, Cl minus, and from this cation will be Al3 plus. Now if you cross over the valences, you'll get the product AlCl3. So this is your aluminum chloride as a salt. So if you know this general properties of acids, you'll be able to predict the product of the reactions. I hope, student, you understood the general properties of acids. Now one more very important point about the bases. The bases do not follow this general trend, but we have one important chemical properties. Like acid plus metal gives salt plus hydrogen. This is not true in case of a basis. But there is a base and a metal which on combining gives us salt and hydrogen, and that's what here is a reaction. You have a metal zinc, and this is the sodium hydroxide. It's a base. Metal plus base gives salt plus hydrogen. This is salt. This is called sodium zincate. So this reaction is very, very important. So it's one of the exceptions we can say. So student, I hope you understood the general properties of acid and bases. So knowing this general properties of acid and bases helps you predict the product of the reactions. So student, with that, we come to the end of today's discussion. So in the next lecture, we'll be discussing about some of the important chemical compounds. Okay, thank you.